We got Nate Tibbetts taking the podium, man. I really want to know what's the reason for Caitlin Clark being benched in this championship game. I really want to know. Let's take a listen to what Coach Nate Tibbetts had to say, man.
Did Team USA create this whole mess the second they benched Caitlin Clark? Comment yes or no, because what happened next turned a simple lineup decision into one of the biggest talking points in women's basketball. This was supposed to be about Team USA winning. Instead, it became about why one of the most dangerous players in the world kept getting treated like a role player. And the wildest part is this. The more they tried to limit Caitlin Clark, the bigger she looked by the end of the tournament.
I gotta look at y'all with the side eye right now. I gotta look at them with the straight up side eye right now as Caitlin Clark was benched in the championship game for the United States. Absolute joke. Absolute joke.
That is why this story blew up. Not just because of the benching, but because the benching made no sense once you saw what happened on the court. Clark came into this run after a long layoff and still ended up winning MVP.
Cheers. How about it? Oh, no, they mad. They big mad. They are flaming right now. Caitlin Clark in her return to basketball, like 8 months off, all these injuries, all of this stuff. The girl shows up and wins MVP just like that.
Team USA finished 5-0, and she averaged 11.6 points and 6.4 assists per game in her first games in 8 months. Think about how insane that is. Most players after that much time away are just trying to find rhythm again. Caitlin Clark came back and looked like the most impactful player in the tournament. But instead of fully handing her the keys, the coaching decisions made this whole thing feel strange from the start. They had a generational point guard, but instead of putting the ball in her hands and letting her control the game, they used weird lineups, played her off the ball, and made it feel like they were trying to take away the exact thing that makes her special.
Caitlin Clark is the real MVP, and this wasn't based on fan voting, I don't think. This is the real deal. This is the real deal. Let's take a look at what she did. First in points, first in assists, first in true shooting percentage, first in plus minus, first in 2-point field goal percentage. Caitlin Clark doing what the GOAT does. Get this CBA signed, because this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning.
And that is where fans started to lose their minds. Because once people saw the starting lineups, this stopped feeling like normal coaching experimentation and started feeling personal. It felt like disrespect. Other players were getting trusted first, while Clark, the player drawing the most attention and changing the energy of the team, was coming off the bench or being treated like a second option.
CC is the GOAT. We've been telling y'all, and it is what it is. Caitlin Clark is the MVP of the 2026 FIBA Women's World Cup. How about that? We had Kara Lawson trying to bench the girl. They putting her in with all these funky, funny lineups. They keep starting Chelsea Gray every game. They got her coming up. They had Angel Reese start a damn game before. Paige Becker started before. Shit, they might have put me in a game. Pardon the language. They might have started me in a game before Caitlin Clark, okay? This was absolute insanity, but this is a beautiful sight to see, okay? Caitlin Clark got her feet wet. She got a taste of it again, okay? She got her legs under her. She got that confidence. Y'all see that long three falling, hitting nothing but nylon? Listen, Caitlin Clark is about to do it to him this year. She about to do it to him this year. You can play games and act like you don't know, but deep down, you already know what time it is.
And fans could feel it, because every time Clark stepped on the floor, the game changed. The pace changed. The spacing changed. The defense had to react differently. That is what made this so explosive. If Clark was struggling, maybe the staff could defend it. If Clark looked overwhelmed, maybe the benching angle would make sense. But that is not what happened. She thrived anyway. She won MVP anyway. And that is the kind of outcome that makes every earlier coaching decision look worse in hindsight. That is why this story kept growing, because it was not just about basketball anymore. It became a story about control, about who gets trusted, about whether some coaches and power structures still seem uncomfortable with how quickly Caitlin Clark has taken over the sport. And once fans believe a player is being held back on purpose, every coaching decision gets judged through that lens. That is when the pressure becomes massive. Because in sports, you can survive a loss. You can survive one bad game. What is harder to survive is making a decision the public thinks is obviously wrong, than watching the player prove that public right. That is the real fallout here. Benching Caitlin Clark turned into the kind of decision that can define a coach. Because if you try to shrink a star like that, and she still ends up as the biggest story, the question becomes brutal. What exactly were you trying to accomplish? And that is the lesson sitting underneath this whole Team USA story. Do not overmanage Caitlin Clark. Do not force her into roles that take the ball out of her hands. Do not build a system that suppresses the very thing that makes her special. Build around it. Support it. Get out of the way. Because when coaches try to correct Clark's style, it does not help the team. When they trust her, the offense changes. The energy changes. The results change. And this is why the MVP matters so much. It was not just a trophy. It was a verdict. It was Clark answering all of this with production. Not with talking, not with excuses, with results. 5-0 as a team. MVP. 11.6 points, 6.4 assists. First games in 8 months. That is not hype. That is proof. So when people ask why this story exploded, that is your answer. It exploded because Team USA tried to manage Caitlin Clark like she was just another piece. But by the end of the tournament, she looked like the center of the whole thing. That is why the backlash got louder instead of fading away. That is why fans kept talking about the lineups instead of just celebrating the wins. And that is why any coach watching this should take the lesson seriously. You do not build around Caitlin Clark by shrinking Caitlin Clark. You build around her by trusting what is obvious. Because the more they tried to hold her down, the bigger she became. And that might be the most important part of this entire story. Team USA may have won the games, but Caitlin Clark won the argument. If you're still watching, comment yes if you think Team USA got this wrong from the start.